Okay, so this week we're covering Module 7. And so I want to give you a little bit of an introduction to get you started. And so, Module 7, we're covering Chapter 8 on purchasing. Now, purchasing's always been an important function in any company, especially like manufacturers who use a lot of raw materials or even raw materials that are hard to obtain. So, purchasing needs to continue to get the right products at the right time at the best price. But that function is changing. And so the steps in the purchasing cycle are still necessary, but there are a lot of manual activities, such as writing your POs, getting information on the products, communicating with suppliers that you've sped through the use of internet and computerization. So this reduction in the routine clerical activity is going to allow you to have time to take more of a strategic view of the organization and have an increasing impact on the profits. So viewing the supply chain as an integrated function, outsourcing, and lean production are probably the three management influences that have kind of encouraged purchasing to improve their relations with suppliers and to take a more active role in scheduling and the flow of products. Purchasing has also had this opportunity to take a lead role in reducing the environmental impact of a company by working with suppliers. And also, there's this, mass media influence that consumers are demanding for environmentally friendly materials. In addition, their role now includes even monitoring ethical sourcing of their products and services. So as you can see, purchasing has kind of come into, some political issues there too, when we think about environmental friendly, issues going out there. All right. So this was finding and choosing suppliers can be particularly challenging because of organizational requirements are quite diverse. On top of that, not every single standard can be precisely matched despite the numerous options. Well, this is a multi-step process. It tends to be arduous and long drawn out. Keeping it to this process can help companies many ways, though. So, in terms of cost efficiency with the purchasing process, companies can compare the offers from various third-party vendors or service providers and pick the one offering the most competitive pricing. In terms of quality assurance, finding the most appropriate suppliers through a meticulous system is going to ensure that you have high quality goods and services without worrying about defects or rejects or even bad company reputation because there was some health risk impinged upon the consumers. Risk mitigation. Now, one of the steps in the purchasing procedure is identifying any threats in quality, any threats in finances or ethics, so that you can ensure that there are measures to mitigate these risks. The last thing to also think about is supply chain reliability. If you have any disruptions in supply chain, like late deliveries, or maybe there's a scarcity of materials, that can impede the operations and have a negative domino effect across the entire supply chain network. So you want to look at the supplier's history. Are they people who just kind of take things without pre-planning? When you're reviewing the suppliers through this process, you can assess what their dependability is. And then long-term collaboration is another factor to consider. It's not just about just buying raw materials from a supplier. There has to be compatibility, shared values like having the similar idea about what's considered late delivery, what's considered a good working ethic, and having those mutual goals are factors that companies often look for in their suppliers so that you will have these enduring partnerships. So the supplier evaluation and selection process benefits not only the company, but those benefits are going to transfer to the customers they serve, since the products and services are going to be delivered exceptionally and on time. So now that you have an idea about the importance of supplier relationships and purchasing, let's look at some of the different ways purchasing can happen. The first one that comes to mind is competitive bidding. Competitive bidding in the supply chain management refers to the procurement process where you've got multiple vendors. You invite all these vendors to submit bids for a specific good or service. And that's going to allow you, the buyer, to compare the offers and select the best one based on criteria like price, quality, delivery time, even the contractual, terms. Because if, say, for example, they're demanding that you need to be partnered with them for 10 years and they're a brand new relationship, then you might not want to pick them. And even things like technical specifications. Ultimately, you want to aim to secure the most value for that purchase by creating a competitive environment, among the suppliers. So this process ensures that there's transparency and fairness in the process that you went about selecting a vendor. Now, what about evaluation criteria? Now, the bids are going to be evaluated based on very specific criteria, not just price. You'll be looking at quality, delivery time, technical capabilities, and customer services. In terms of the steps involved in the competitive business process, the first thing you're going to do is identify what your company needs are. So any specific requirements in terms of the service or goods. And then second step would be to, invite all of those suppliers and you're going to identify a pool of qualified vendors. When I say qualified, you're going to look at things like their credit history. Have they had any history of fraud, scams, bankruptcies, or maybe they're going through a lawsuit. Well, you don't want to get into business with them. Uh, and then thirdly, the RFX. You want to send out a request for information or a request for a proposal, depending on what the complexity of your company's need. And this, request for information or request for proposal is going to have outline the detailed specifications that you're looking for, and also, clearly spell out what type of criteria are deal breakers for you even considering that vendor as a partner. Then we'll start the bid submission process. This is where, okay, they want, all these vendors have gotten your invitation. They're going to submit the best proposal that they can give you in terms of pricing, any relevant information. Then it's up to your company and your partners to review and compare those bids based on that established criteria. Now, you might find a vendor who has all the bolts and nuts that you're looking for, but I wouldn't say just don't just jump on the wagon and go for that. Make sure it's always worth it to negotiate. So in the negotiation stage, you might want to have some further discussion and compare them with some of the shortlisted vendors before you finalize the terms and conditions. And then the last step would be once you've narrowed down the people who you think work in terms of a company fit, company values and goals have been considered, you're going to award that contract and formalize that contract. So once you've gotten your vendors, now we have to go to the opposite side of things, which is where pricing starts. So prices are set. So how do you determine what's the value for the product that you're selling? Because you're going to work backwards from what price you set to what you're able to predictably keep as your operating expense. So prices have an upper and lower limit. The market is going to decide what the upper limit is because the upper limit is going to be dictated by what buyers are willing to pay, based on their perception of demand, supply, and their own needs. Now, the seller is going to set the lower limit. The lower limit is going to be determined by what it's going to cost the company to manufacture and sell that product, and also what their profit expectation is. Now, if buyers are to arrive at a fair price, they're going to have to develop an understanding of what that market demand and supply is. Also, have some knowledge about competitive prices, and and also some information about the methods that are arriving at a cost. So price negotiation in manufacturing is all about, the process where the buyer, like a company who's looking to source a product, and the manufacturer are going to discuss and agree upon what the final price of the good to be produced should be. But they're also going to take into, factors like production costs, the desired quality, the order volumes, and the market conditions before they are able to reach a mutually beneficial agreement. So at worst, between the margin of what's the highest price that you want to aim for to break even. And that's where this break even analysis becomes important. So in manufacturing, a break even analysis is a method that you're going to use to calculate the minimum production volume or the number of units that a company needs to sell to be able to, at the worst case scenario, cover all its production costs. So the break-even analysis is essentially going to be the tool you're use to point to where that total revenue is going to equal your total expenses. And so in that case, when they equal, you're not going to profit, but you're also not going to have a loss. So essentially, it's the point where the company breaks even on the manufacturing operations. So when would you use break-even analysis? You can use break-even analysis when you're trying to determine your pricing strategy. Informing pricing decisions by understanding how the price changes is going to impact that break-even point. You can use break-even analysis for production planning. If you're trying to identify what the optimal production volume is so that you can reach profitability, then you definitely want to calculate your break-even. Cost control. If you're trying to identify areas to reduce both fixed or variable costs, and to help lower that break-even point. Or even if you're doing an investment analysis, you can reference and do the calculations for break-even analysis. Maybe you're in their investment analysis, you're trying to determine the feasibility of a new product or introducing new product processes. Then you would want to estimate that break-even point. All right. So one thing that we want to also, in terms of pricing, we need to understand what are the types of products that you'll be making. We need to make some distinctions in terms of the definition. So a commodity is not the same thing as a product. A commodity, it means a raw material that's used to manufacture finished goods. The product, on the other hand, is going to be the finished good that's going to be sold to the consumers. Now, both commodities and production are part of the production and manufacturing process, but the main difference being is where they sit in the supply chain. Commodities are typically at the early stages of production. Products are going to follow in the final stage. So there's no value is going to be added to a commodity that could be grown, it could be extracted, it could be mined. Commodities are traded on exchanges through, future contracts, stocks, EFTs, and they can even be bought and sold in their physical states. Products are going to be sold on the market for consumption by the average consumer like you and me, and they can be found in investment portfolios. Now, some of the most common commodities include like copper, crude oil, wheat, coffee beans, and gold. Now, commodities can be further broken down into two different categories: hard commodities and soft commodities. Soft commodities are those that are grown and they can't be stored for extended periods of times. So, a soft commodity would be coffee, cocoa, orange juice, sugar. Hard commodities are those that they can be mined or extracted from the earth, like metals and petroleum products. Now, the next thing to look at is a standard product. When we talk about standard product, we're referencing a product that's manufactured consistently with some set specifications and quality standards, meaning that regardless of the batch or the production run, the product will have the same features, design, and functionality, where standard manufacturing is the whole process of producing these consistent standard products using established procedures and quality controls to ensure there's uniformity across the production runs. Now, product standardization is a manufacturing and a service development concept that can impact almost every good and service sold. It can help companies save money on manufacturing and develop this brand image, like McDonald's. McDonald's at product standardization. If you go to order French fries in Brazil, guess what? They taste exactly the same as if you're sitting in New York or state of Illinois. So it also provides consumer with a more relaxing purchasing experience because they know what they can expect. They know that when they get their hands around those hot fries, that it's going to be exactly what they had tasted before. So a standardized product uses the same materials no matter where in the world it's sold, from raw materials used to create it to its branding name and even their packaging. So a standard service can be delivered through the same medium with similar characteristics each and every time. So product adaptation is the opposite of product standardization because now you're going to be adapting products to each market. Now, here are some common uses of product standardization. Individual products, like companies may standardize individual products, keeping everything from the recipe or the processes and to labeling consistently across the national and international market. So large international food, clothing, or beverage companies, those are the ones that would have standard product lines that don't vary significantly in different places. Franchises. Franchises are companies that that have they use a brick and mortar location so they can standardize procedures and materials so that the customers will have a consistent experience. Fast food restaurants are an example of franchises. They have the standardized interiors. The menus are the same. The products are the same. Now, in terms of regulations could be a reason for enforcing standardizations. So organizations like certifying bodies or even government agencies, they may set some regulations on how to make a product safe for consumers, like the pharmaceutical industry. So, or even if we're talking about government regulations on local utilities or other tools. Maybe plugs and outlets are generally standardized across a country so that customers can use them in almost any appliance without having an adapter. Market norms would also push a company to adapt, standardization. Companies could standardize how they package their products or services within the competitors so that the customers know what amount of medium the product will come from. So, for example, companies that make items like papers, hot dogs, or stocks, they usually package them with the same number of pages or stocks as their competitors. So, what are the advantages of product standardization? Well, the first one that comes to mind would be production efficiency. When a company standardizes a product, it enables them to have greater efficiency throughout the production process. So, for instance, they can purchase materials and packaging in bulk, which is going to result in discounts with their costs and their shipping. Now, after a company finds a successful design for any of their machines or tools used in production, they can start to produce that equipment consistently rather than creating custom equipment for each product line. Even training costs are lower since that company can use the same materials, courses, or instruction for all its employees that are involved in producing and packaging that product. Second advantage is better scaling. You have more predictable scaling of standardized processes that are as opposed to something that's customizable or adaptable process because they don't have to spend time or money redeveloping a product or redesigning the packaging or even finding new suppliers. So it may be more efficient to build new manufacturing facilities for the same product even with, maybe minor adjustments in different units or local utilities rather than designing a completely brand new plant. Strong brand reputation is another advantage. When customers know what to expect from a standardized product, they may develop a loyalty or even look for that product when they're traveling. So when that product is high quality, customers form these positive, emotional associations with branding. Strong brand recognition can help with everything from building that market share to finding funding and even expanding geographically. Now let's switch over to the term items of small value. Now, these are items like maintenance supplies, cleaning supplies. They represent purchases of very small value that trying to do a price negotiation wouldn't make any sense in that arena. So the prime objective would be to keep the cost of ordering low. So companies may negotiate maybe a contract with that supplier that can supply many items and set a very simple ordering system that reduces the cost of ordering. And then the last term that, is made to order items. We've discussed this in the previous chapters, but I just want to briefly touch upon it. This category includes items made for specification or even items which quotations from several sources are received. And these can be negotiated. All right. So this is your intro to this module here. And so thank you for joining me.